Hey, I want to welcome everybody to Real Life. We're so glad that you're here, whether you are inside, outside, watching online in Valencia or Canyon Country. We are so thrilled that you're joining us this weekend. And I just want to say a special thank you, and I want you all just to join me in appreciating, and especially those of you at Canyon Country. I'm going to ask you to give a huge shout out for the job that Brennan Conklin did last weekend. Can we just appreciate the message last week? Brennan is always great, but I thought last weekend's message was particularly amazing, just a whole other level. It was fantastic. And if you missed it, make sure you check it out. It was just really, really great. A couple things as we get going here. First Step is coming up a week from Sunday. If you've never been to First Step, would you just let us take care of you for an hour, okay? As our little gift to you, late Valentine's Day. Come on in. We're going to feed you lunch, take care of your kids, answer all your questions about the church, and help you get plugged in around here. You can ask as many as you want or as few as you want, whatever the case. That's coming up the very first Sunday in March, so make sure you sign up for that on the website or with the card. And then also, 2 weeks from this weekend, Lee Strobel is going to be here. And if you don't know Lee's story, he was an atheist, and his wife started going to church, which made him really mad. And then he, which I know some of you have been in that boat before, I get it. But he was a journalist for the Chicago Tribune, and he decided to use all of his journalistic training to disprove Christianity. He did this for a couple of years, and at the end of his study, he became a follower of Jesus. And then he wrote a book about it called The Case for Christ, which is just an amazing bestseller that has been printed in multiple languages, and many people have read this saying it's incredible. And now it's being made into a movie, which comes out here in just a couple of months. And Lee's going to be here to share his story. And I'm telling you, you're not going to want to miss it. And more importantly, you're going to want to bring a friend. And so we have some invite cards for you you're going to get, and use those to invite somebody to come. And if you go to the app right now, at the very top of the Real Life Church app, there's a way for you to invite a friend to a particular service you're going to attend, and it just sends them a great message and says, will you come with me to this? It's going to be fantastic. He's going to be here with us in a couple weeks. You get to hear him all weekend on that weekend. So make sure you're here for that. Okay, so we're in week 3 of this series called This is Jesus, and we're talking about this idea of who Jesus was and who Jesus is, and in light of that, who are we to be? Who are we supposed to be like, and what we're supposed to be about? What does it mean to follow Jesus? Does that just mean you just have to believe that he existed? Does that mean that you need to show up for church on Christmas and Easter? Does that mean you need to get, a fish in the back of your car, or maybe, a tattoo of a cross or something like that? What does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? And so we're just looking at, what did Jesus do, and what are we supposed to do? So we're kind of taking this in 2 parts. This is Jesus, and this is us, kind of playing off the TV show if you've seen that, and if you saw Tuesdays. Goodness gracious, I just stopped crying. All right, so this is Jesus, this is us, that's what we're talking about. So here's what I want to do today. I want to talk about the situation that all of us find ourselves in when you see somebody and they're making bad decisions and rough things are going on or bad things are happening to them, but you don't know what to do. You see a mess in somebody's life, but you're not really sure what you're supposed to say. And if you're married, inevitably, you have 2 different opinions about what you're supposed to do. Okay, because that's just the way it always works. That's God's great joke on all of us. We end up marrying people that we think are just like us, and then we realize, who are you? That's kind of what happens. So let me tell you a story here just to give you an illustration of this. We have 2 dogs, and I think I've mentioned them before. And I love dogs. I've always been a dog person, and I love these dogs. And they're little tiny dogs, and one's name is Charlie Brown, and then there's the other one named Lucy. Okay, Lucy's a strange dog. She's the strangest dog I've ever been around. She acts more like a cat, which is kind of funny because I don't like cats, and so it's like I have a cat in the house, which, by the way, somebody here at Real Life came up to me one Sunday between services and say, hey, Pastor Rusty, you know how you said you don't like cats? I said, yes. We just got a cat, and we named him after you. So, I don't want to get kids named after me. I get cats named after me. So thank you very much. Anyway, so I got this dog at home that acts like a cat, and she's just kind of strange. And one of the things that's strange about her, she gets really, really weird when it rains. Okay? She won't go outside. She won't do her business, okay, like she's supposed to. And we've taken her on walks. We've held an umbrella over her. We've done all these things to try to get her to go outside. But she just shuts down, okay? And it's bad. So one morning during all this rain that we've been having, I get up early and I'm dressed. I'm getting ready to walk out the door to come to the office. I got my backpack. I'm walking through the house. And as I'm walking through the house, I see over there on the floor, the hardwood floors, on the floor, just a little present from Lucy throughout the evening, okay? Just a little sweetheart of a gift over there, right? And in that moment, I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking, I don't want to clean that up right now. I'm in a hurry. I want to get out the door. But I should clean it up. But I don't want to clean it up. If I act like I don't see it, somebody else will clean it up. You know, and then maybe the kids will get it. Well, who am I kidding? My wife will tell the kids to get it. That's what will happen. It'll get cleaned up. And should I get it? Should I walk over there and get it? Should I just walk out of here and leave? What did I do? Well, I got to work on time. Let me just put it that way, okay? And I'll let you decide whatever happened, you know, in that particular moment. Now, so here's the thing. Now, I use that story to tell you that this is what all of us face on a daily basis with people. Not because they've done that in our living room, hopefully, but because you've had an experience with people where they're making a mess of their lives, or there's some kind of mess going on in their life, and you're thinking, should I say something? Who am I to judge? But I really want to help. But you know what? Maybe I shouldn't be the one. Maybe somebody else will do it, but maybe I should. You know, and this goes back and forth. You might have situations like you've got a coworker who's stealing, and you know it, and you think you should say something. Maybe you've got a friend who's cheating on their spouse, and you're thinking, does she know? Maybe I should say something. Maybe you have neighbors who are engaging in, you know, in an open marriage, and people are coming and going all the time, and you think, that's going to be destructive. Should I say something? Who am I to judge? Maybe you've got a teenager who's experimenting with drugs, and you're thinking, you know what? He's getting older. It's his decision. I want to give him freedom to learn from his mistakes. And another one of you is going, no, we got to jump in. Maybe you're, you know, a 17-year-old, and you've got a sibling who's making mistakes. You're thinking, should I tell mom and dad? Should I talk to them? Or what should I do? Maybe you're a couple that doesn't have kids, but you sure are opinionated about other people's kids. And you see the way they act, and you think, I need to say something. I can't believe they did that. We're in a restaurant, you know, and you're trying to just speak into their life. Maybe you're a parent of kids making mistakes, and you're trying to figure out, am I over-parenting? Am I under-parenting? Maybe you're a friend of an addict, and you see the decisions that they're making. You think, man, I really got to do something, but I don't know. Do I put together an intervention? How do I do this? You see, right now, what you're feeling right now inside your heart is that tug of war, is that battle of should I do something, should I not? It's a little bit like this picture right here of a teeter-totter. Okay, or some may say a seesaw. And you know how this works. You get two people on this, and it goes up and down, back and forth. And there's always one joker that decides just to get off and run away, and the other one, you know, has to go to the chiropractor for the next 10 years, all right? So that's the teeter-totter that goes back and forth. And this is what happens in our relationships, because you've probably got this situation right now in your family. You've got a child that is making mistakes right now. And one of you is all, we love you, it's okay, we want to give you safe boundaries to experiment. Free range parents is the new terminology for that, right? We're raising you in free range, plenty of room to run, do what you want. And the other one, man, you're on the other side of this, and you're thinking, we got to bring in the hammer of Thor on this thing. We got to shut this down. And you want to jump in, and you want to correct everything they do, and you want to fix everything, and you want to tell them no to everything. And you're kind of the helicopter parent that's always hovering around, and you want to swoop in. So you got open range and helicopter. What do? How do you make that choice? What's the right thing to do? Maybe some of you have friends on social media, and the things they post, you're thinking, man, that's not appropriate. I mean, look at that outfit she's wearing. That's not appropriate to put on Instagram. And your husband's like, let me see that one more time. No, I don't. Probably not. Send that to me. You know, and so and there's this going back and forth. You're thinking, should I say something? Should I not say something? So here's what you opt to do. I'll just write a post about how I don't like indecency on social media, right? Maybe they'll get the hint. They don't get the hint, but you're going back and forth on, should I say something? Should I not say something? What do I do? Maybe you've got friends and their marriage is a mess. And you're thinking, yeah, he's probably having an affair, and she's probably hooked on pills, and their kids are paying the price for it, and I think I should say something, but I don't know what to do. And this is the argument. You either have it in your head or with your spouse of, yeah, we should say something. Who are we to judge? Yeah, but we got to be the ones, not us, because we're not perfect. And it goes back and forth like this. Maybe you're a young adult and you've got friends that are on Tinder, and you see the decisions that they're making. They're swiping right, swiping right, swiping right, and somehow they just don't end up in a good relationship. And you're just tired of hearing them talk about it all the time. Oh, then I was out with this person, and then this went wrong, and this went wrong. You're thinking, I know what the problem is, but you're thinking, I don't want to be the person that comes in and brings all the reasons why you shouldn't, because who am I to judge? What do you do in that situation? I mean, what do you do with real life issues that we all face? Well, here's the great news. Jesus tells us what to do. And what's so great about this is Jesus is almost kind of forced into these situations to deal with these kind of messy situations. And I'm so glad that he was, because Jesus is brilliant, and he teaches us exactly how we should handle this teeter-totter between grace and truth. How do we manage this? And so we have this incredible book that's written by an eyewitness to the Jesus story. He was right there with Jesus through everything that happened. He wrote it all down. It's one of the books in our Bible, and it's written by this guy named John. And we've been marching through this over the past few weeks, and we'll continue to, clear up to Easter. And John tells us about a couple of stories in Jesus' life where he has to approach the mess. And in some situations where the mess is brought before him. And in the way Jesus responds, we learn how we should respond in these situations. So we're going to take a look at these two stories. If you have a Bible, you can open up to the book of John. If you don't, we're going to throw it up on the screen. If you have your phone or an iPad or something like that, you can download the RLC app, and you can follow along with all the verses right there. And we're going to do two things tonight. We're going to look at this is Jesus, and then we're going to look at this is us, what we should do as a result of it. Okay, here's what John has to say. Jesus knew the Pharisees, okay, these are the religious leaders of the day that did not like Jesus because he was really disrupting what they were all about. Jesus knew the Pharisees that heard that he was baptizing and making more disciples than John, that's John the Baptist. Though Jesus himself didn't baptize them, his disciples did. Now, here's what I love about this right here. The Pharisees are picking a fight with Jesus. And so here's what Jesus does. He doesn't engage. He doesn't get on social media and let them have it. Instead, he left. He says, we're not dealing with this. And he just walks away from the fight. He leaves Judea, and he returned to Galilee. Now, here's what I love about this. This is not in a land far away, once upon a time. These are actual historical places. And many times throughout the writings in the scriptures, we get actual dates and kings that lived, and we can look at history and compare them and find out this is real. This actually happened. And John keeps giving us these facts. He leaves Judea and he returns to Galilee. He had to go through Samaria. Now, no one had to go through Samaria. Jews hated Samaritans, and they would not step foot on the Samaritan soil because they viewed them as a bunch of religious and ethnic half-breeds, and they didn't want anything to do with them. But Jesus had to go, because he wanted to engage with this story we're about to read with and this woman and change her life. He goes through Samaria on the way, and eventually he came to the Samaritan village of Sychar near the field that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired from the long walk. Now, I love that this detail's in there. You know why I love that? Because it reminds us that though Jesus was fully God, he was also fully human. And these pictures we have of Jesus with the halo around his head and the perfectly ironed white robe and the Miss America sash, and the blowing hair, and looking like he's never, gotten his clothes dirty or his hands dirty. Jesus was tired. And we read in other passages that he cried and that he was troubled and he was thirsty and he sweated. And all this stuff goes on. Jesus is feeling the same stuff that we're feeling. This is Jesus. And he's tired from the long walk. He sat wearily beside the well about noontime. Now that's key. It's noon. Look what happens next. Soon a Samaritan woman came to draw water. Now stop right there. Why would you come to the well at noon, the heat of the day, to draw water? We don't ever wrestle with those kind of questions in our world. Why would you do that? Because she knew nobody else would be there. She didn't want to be around anybody else. And so this Samaritan woman, two words that did not associate with Jewish people in that day, Samaritans and women. The Jewish men wanted nothing to do with either one of them. She comes to get water, and Jesus speaks to her. And he says, please give me a drink. Now you might think, well, that sounds a little rude. Jesus just sitting there now demanding that she gives him a drink. No, Jesus was speaking a privilege upon her because nobody would talk to her. This is an act of tremendous grace that Jesus even engages and asks for her assistance because he doesn't have a bucket, he doesn't have a rope, but she does. Please give me a drink. He was alone at the time because his disciples had gone into the village to buy some food. The woman was surprised because, first of all, there's somebody there. Second of all, it's a Jewish man. Third, he looks like a rabbi, and he's talking to me. For Jews refuse to have anything to do with Samaritans. And she said to Jesus, you're a Jew, I'm a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink? Why are you even talking to me? This is the first act of grace from Jesus to this woman. He talks to her. Look what happens next. Jesus replied, if you only knew the gift God has for you and who you are speaking to, you would ask me and I would give you living water. Look at these two words we've highlighted here. These are gifts to her, speaking to Jesus, living water. But sir, you don't have a rope or a bucket. And she said, and this well is very deep. Where would you get this living water? Besides, do you think you're greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us this well? How can you offer better water than he and his sons and his animals enjoyed? Jesus continues, anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again, but those who drink the water I give never be thirsty again. Again, giving language. And becomes a fresh bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. Again, a blessing. Please, sir, the woman said, give me this water, because then I won't have to be thirsty again. I won't have to keep coming back out here to the well, all right? She's thinking still about actual water, but Jesus is talking about something even better than that. He's extending the hand of grace to her by speaking to her and offering her the living water that we now enjoy. Now, here's what's amazing about this. It's not because she's perfect. It's not because she's a churchgoer, and it's not because she even believes in Jesus. She doesn't even know who he is. She keeps referring to him as Sir. If you think in order for Jesus to give you grace, you've got to be holy, perfect, blameless, and never made a mistake, you're wrong. This is Jesus. He speaks to people that don't even know him, don't even believe in him, and he offers them grace. But Jesus knows what's going on in her heart and in her life. Look what happens next. He says, go get your husband. I don't have a husband, the woman replied. And Jesus says, you know what, you're right. You don't have a husband, for you've had 5 husbands, and you aren't even married to the man you're living with now. You certainly spoke the truth. Sir, the woman said, you must be a prophet. Now, this brings up a question that often is raised when you're reading the stories about Jesus, and that is, if he's fully God and fully man, what powers did he possess? Because he gave up so much of that in order to become fully human. But we do know that he seems to continue to have divine knowledge into the human heart. And Jesus is able to look into her soul and know what's going on with her, and he calls her out to the deepest part of her shame. No marriage has worked for her, and she's living with a guy that won't commit to her. And this is why she's getting water by herself in the heat of the day, because everybody around her has labeled her and wants nothing to do with her. And she's ashamed. Jesus, this is just so amazing. He has a way of highlighting her guilt without making her feel shame. Guilt is I've done something wrong. Shame is I am something wrong. And Jesus exposes guilt, but does not bring shame. And then he does something that's just remarkable. The woman said, I know the Messiah is coming, the one who is called Christ. When he comes, he'll explain everything to us. In other words, okay, you're going to talk about prophet stuff. The Messiah will one day show up and he'll figure all this out. And look what Jesus says next. Then Jesus told her, I am the Messiah. Now, you know why that is so huge? Because up until this point in Jesus' life, he hasn't told anybody else. The first person Jesus lets in on the divine secret that he is God in the flesh is a Samaritan, adulterous woman. This is Jesus. Then he continues. Just then his disciples come back. I would love to see this played out. When we get to heaven, watch this on video. Wouldn't this be great? They have to be completely stunned. What? We leave for 5 minutes. They were shocked to find him talking to a woman, but none of them had the nerve to ask him, okay? You ask him. I'm not asking him. Tell Peter to ask him. He's always saying something stupid. What do you want with her? Or why are you talking to her? This is a conundrum for them. They don't even know what to do next. But look what the woman does. The woman left her water jar beside the well. She leaves the very thing she came there to do. And then she ran back to the village, telling everyone, come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. And they're all like, everything you ever did? She's like, everything I ever did. Could he possibly be the Messiah? And this is amazing. Why is it that she, in her shame, meets Jesus and now is able to run back and tell everybody? She's been avoiding people. But Jesus did something with the mess in her life that teaches us what we should do with the messes in our life and other people's lives. It's just amazing. Jesus is brilliant. All right, now, that's one story. Let me tell you one more. John chapter 8, John tells us about this story about this woman. And this is another woman, different story. Jesus returned to the Mount of Olives, but earlier the next morning he was back again at the temple, and a crowd soon gathered. So there are a lot of people around Jesus at this moment, and he sat down and taught them. As he was speaking, the teachers of the religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. Now, here's what's really interesting about this. To be caught in the act of adultery, there must be a man involved as well. He's not there. It's just the woman. And they bring her out and they put her in front of the crowd, probably naked. And they throw her down in front of Jesus. And look what they say. Teacher, they said to Jesus, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say? Now, right here, they are already messing with this law. Because first of all, the man is not there. And second of all, the law of Moses says there has to be a witness. And they haven't brought that man. They are setting this woman up and they are setting Jesus up. That's the hypocrisy behind all of this. Then look what happens. They were trying to trap him into saying something they could use against him, but Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. Now, here's why I point out this word wrote. Not everybody back then could read or write. Jesus was writing in the dust. He is on the cutting edge of technology. Now, here's why I tell you that. Kids, for those of you that want an iPad, but your parents tell you you can't have one, you just tell them Jesus would have one, okay? Because he's on the cutting edge of tech. No? Okay, never mind. Cutting edge of technology. All right, next slide. Nobody's with me. They kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and said, all right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone. Now, this actually doesn't just mean never sinned at all. This means has never done this sin. Now he's getting really personal. Let him throw the first stone. Then he stooped down and started writing in the dust again. He's pointing out to them, haven't you done this as well? You know, what's interesting about this is, and this is sad, and I don't know why this is, some of the most judgmental people I know are not only followers of Jesus, they're ones who have been forgiven of much. And there's something about when we engage in some kind of practice that we know is evil and is wrong, we willingly accept God's grace, but it is really hard for us to give that to somebody else because there's something inside of us that says we need a little bit of moral superiority to others, and so we keep looking down on everybody else. I don't know why that is, but the most judgmental people I know have often been forgiven of the most heinous of crimes. And these men, Jesus is saying, those of you who haven't done what she's done, you guys throw the first stone. Look what happens. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest. That's because the longer you live, the more you realize how much you've done wrong. Until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. And then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" "No, Lord," she said. And Jesus said, "Neither do I." You see this? Extending grace again. Grace no one else would give her. And then he says, "But go and sin no more." In other words, you are living beneath your privilege. You have so much more that your life could be about. Know that you are loved and forgiven. But don't keep living this life. Go and sin no more. This is Jesus. Now take a look at just the way Jesus dealt with this teeter-totter. First, there was this first woman, and he started with grace. He says to her, "Give me a drink, let me talk to you." He engages with her. He explains that he is the Messiah. And then he exposes this hidden part of her life that needs to change, and he shares truth. With this second woman, he encounters her where she is, he protects her from being killed, and then he tells her he doesn't condemn her. But then he says, "Go and sin no more." You see, he seems to have balanced this out. You lead with grace, and then you share truth. Now, let me just pause for just a second here. Let me ask you a question. For those of you who have stayed away from church forever, and you have resisted everything about God for so long, wouldn't it be fair to say the reason you've done that is not because of Jesus, but because of his friends? Wouldn't it be fair to say the reason you have stayed away from church and from God and from Jesus and the Bible for so long is not because of any of those, but because of church people who made you feel a way that had nothing to do with what Jesus just did right there? Where Jesus took that teeter-totter and led with grace and then went to truth, all you ever experienced from them was just truth. And there was no grace behind it at all. Can I just tell you something? If I can just speak on behalf of Jesus from the way we see lived out here, you may find yourself picking up the pieces of your marriage because you thought you could have an open marriage, and now you're a wreck. You may be picking up the pieces of an affair. You may be picking up the pieces of an addiction, maybe to pornography or to alcohol or to drugs. You may be picking up the pieces of trying to figure out what you're going to do next for your career because you were fired for stealing from the company. You may be dealing with the ramifications of bitterness and regret and unforgiveness in your life. Can I just tell you that Jesus loves you? He does not condemn you, and he accepts you right where you are, not as you should be. This is Jesus. But here's the great thing. Jesus doesn't want you to stay there. He wants you to go and sin no more and live up to your potential that God has for you. Jesus constantly models grace, then truth, and then more grace. That's Jesus. So what does that mean for us? Well, I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to be really honest with you here. And if you're not a Christ follower, you're off the hook on this one. But if you call yourself a follower of Jesus, this is what we're supposed to do. This is us. The first thing is we start with love, then truth. I know. There are some of us that our personality is just, no. I like to deal with the issue. I like to march right in there and tell them what's going on is wrong. By march right in there, you mean get on Facebook and let everybody know what's going on is wrong. That's not helping anybody. I know some of you go, well, listen, I say things like, I mean this in love, and I said with all due respect, but come on. That's not helping anybody. It'd be a little bit like if you're at a restaurant having dinner with your wife and there's some table over there and they got little kids and the kids are up running around the restaurant and banging knives and forks on the tables and they, walk by and take a fry from you and you get up and you go over there and just scream at the kids. Guess what? They'll probably stop for a moment. But eventually they'll start up again. Why? Because you scared them. But you do not love them. You see, Paul says it's the kindness of God that draws us to repentance, not the judgment and justice. Lead with love. Sit with them. Cross boundaries. Listen to their perspective. Don't see people as a project. See people as people Jesus loves. And share your story of the mistakes that you've made, even if it's not the same mistakes that they've made. Start with love. Because I've found when you start with love, they eventually listen to truth, which leads to the second thing. Speak the truth in love. Look at what Paul says here. This is just brilliant. He says this, instead we will speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ, who is the head of his body and the church. He says, you want to be like Jesus? This is what Jesus did. He led with love, and then when he got around to truth, he spoke it in love. He tells that woman, I don't condemn you either, but go and sin no more. And maybe what that looks like in your relationships is there's somebody in your life that's throwing their life away. And you love them and pray for them and are in their life to the point where you can sit down with them and say, listen, you're going to destroy your life if you keep this up. I know because I've been there before. Maybe you sit down with somebody and you say, listen, I love you and I'm really glad that you're employed here, but I can't let you continue to work here if you keep this up. I'm saying that to you in love. Maybe it is with your kids. You just got to look at them and say, listen, I'm not going to let you talk to your mother like that. I love you, but I loved her first. And speak the truth in love. Maybe you just look at somebody and say, listen, we can't maintain this friendship if you keep treating me this way. Eventually, I'm not going to want to be part of this anymore. They may change, they may not, but you've done what Christ calls us to do. And you've modeled what Jesus does. You start with grace, and then you bring truth. And then you go back to grace. That's the teeter-totter of what it means to follow Jesus. Now, can we just think for a second, what would our world be like? Not even if everybody did that, just the people that call themselves followers of Jesus. Just the people that call themselves followers of Jesus, if we would stop being known for what we're against and started being known for who we're for and lead with love and lead with grace, we would get a chance to speak truth. And I just tend to think that this world would be a much better place if we moved towards those difficult situations like Jesus did. Not running from them, but dealing with them as they come, starting with grace and then with truth. I know you've got a situation in your life you're worried about, thinking about, and wondering what to do. So let me just pray for that right now. God, right now at all of our campuses, we just take a moment to stop and thank you for your incredible grace you have shown towards us. We have been forgiven because of the grace of Jesus. And God, I don't know why that makes us feel morally superior to some. I don't know why that makes us feel like we can throw stones at other people. But God, we have been forgiven of much, and so we need to love much. And may we learn how to start every relationship with love. God, there are some difficult situations in our lives right now. Some people that live in our house, that live in our neighborhood, that work with us, and we don't know how to engage in a way that brings love and truth. God, may we just model what Jesus has done and lead with grace and then speak the truth in love. God, I know there are some here right now and some that are listening in online. They're just thinking, I've never even received that grace before. So God, I know that you would want them to have that opportunity. And so I'm just going to say this for everybody listening to me right now. And if you're ready to take that step right now and receive that grace of Jesus, if you would just quietly right there where you are, just pray these words in your own mind to Jesus after me. Jesus, I need your grace. And I stand before you a sinner. And I'm accepting your love and your forgiveness. Now, speak truth into my heart about what you have in store for me next. God, I thank you for all those who prayed that for the first time. I thank you for all of us that have prayed that before. And I thank you for the grace that is still fresh and new every morning for all of us. And may we be people that live that out. And we pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.